Hello, and welcome to McClendon Studios. I'm your host, David E. McClendon Sr. And today we're going to have an in memoriam for my father, Robert Bruce McClendon Jr. Now, today is May the 12th, 2016, and it was 29 years ago today that my father, Robert Bruce McClendon Jr., passed away at 10:10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So 29 years ago today, he left this world and went to be with Jesus. That day started out like a typical day. It was a Tuesday morning, and I went to eat at the restaurant with Waffle King, and then went into the store, and usually I would open up the store about an hour early every morning. At that point in time, we were computerizing the store, trying to get the store on a computerized inventory system. And it was simply easier to go in before the store officially opened so that I could deal with the working on the computerizing the inventory without having too many interruptions. Once the store actually opened, there would be customers that would come in and that would need my attention, or there'd be a whole manner of things that just had to be taken care of, and it was just simply easier. Well, since we were computerizing the store, we had an additional phone line put in at the store for the computer to be on. And during that hour that I was there at the store before it officially opened, I wouldn't answer the regular telephone line, but I would answer the computer line, because the only person that had that number would be Suzanne. And so if Suzanne needed me, she could get through, and if someone else was trying to call the store, then they would need to wait until we officially opened at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, this particular Tuesday morning, the computer line rang, and so I knew it was Suzanne. I went and answered the phone, and she said, "Your father's having a heart attack." And I said, "What?" And so I hung up the phone. And now I knew from memory the phone number for the Iowa dispatcher, which would dispatch the Iowa ambulance, and rescue control, which would dispatch any ambulance in Anderson County. Now I had known this for years, because I used to be with the Iowa Rescue Squad. Not only that, there was an orange sticker on the phone that had those emergency numbers on it. And in addition to that, right beside the phone was an auto dialer, and the very top number was the Rescue Squad. We had Rescue Squad, Sheriff, Iowa Patrol, and Iowa Police all right there, where touch of a button we could dial them. But I couldn't think to do any one of those things. I kept trying to dial the number and couldn't, and finally I remembered I could dial 0. So I dialed 0 for the operator, and the operator connected me to Rescue Control, and Rescue Control dispatched an ambulance. The ambulance was coming back from a call that they had previously had. The rescue squad hut was within sight of my parents' house and our house. But the ambulance that was already manned was in Star at the time that the dispatch went out. Anyway, I left the store. I locked the door, but I didn't set the alarm. I went to the house, and there my father was laying at the base of the old-time farm bell that we had. My father bought one of those old-time farm bells that you'd pull the cord and ding to call in the workers from the field when the lunch was ready or supper was ready, or you just needed people to come in for whatever reason. He had installed a rope that went all the way down to the ground, because his grandbaby, my nephew Patrick, loved the bell. And Papa would hold him up and he'd ding the bell, and then Papa decided, well, if I make the rope long enough, then he can ding it all he wants to standing on the ground. And so he did that so Patrick could ring the bell. So that rope was there for Patrick. Anyway, he had gotten up and gotten dressed. He started having chest pains. He put on his shoes. He went outside, was going to go down to his mother's house and get her to help him. But he couldn't make it. He stopped at the bell and just started ringing it. A constant emergency kind of ring. Ding, 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 ding. My grandma looked out the door and saw him laying on the ground dinging the bell. And she couldn't think to call the ambulance, because at that kind of thing going on, the last thing in the world is rational. So, you're just not in a rational state of mind. But she could think enough to go down and tell Suzanne that Papa was having a heart attack. Well, that's what she did. She went and knocked on the back door and told Suzanne, "Hey, Papa's having a heart attack." And Suzanne called me at the store. She had presence of mind enough to dial the computer line. And then she went out to try to help with Papa. She had, Jared was almost a year old at the time, and she had to get him and carry him up there. Anyway, so I arrived, and Suzanne's out in the yard, Grandma's out in the yard, Papa's there at the base of the bell, and there was really nothing I could do for him. Had no equipment whatsoever and wouldn't have been able to do anything. The ambulance arrived, and before Papa Bruce would get in the ambulance, he had Suzanne promise that she would open the store, and I had to give her quick answers or quick instructions on how to open the store, and she'd never done this before. I had to tell her where the money was and how to get in the doors, because it was a complicated procedure, because we changed the lock to where it was burglar proof, and so you had to know how to do it, otherwise you'd lock yourself out until you could get a locksmith. Anyway, so we got in the ambulance. I took his blood pressure, and he had no blood pressure. He had a pulse, but no blood pressure. And I thought, this is very unusual. I've never had a patient before that I couldn't get a blood pressure on. I had been an EMT, and my license had expired. And so the EMT in the ambulance tried to get the blood pressure, and they couldn't get it either. So off we went. And they called and had the paramedic, Greg Shore, meet us en route. And Greg Shore got in and started a picture-perfect, textbook-perfect TKO IV. And I know it was picture-perfect because I've, in all my years in the ambulance, I'd ridden with the top-rated paramedic in South Carolina, and one of the top-rated paramedics in the country, who had graduated with the highest of honors from paramedic school and was a nationally registered paramedic. And so I'd seen many perfect IV started, and this was a perfect IV. Unfortunately, it didn't do any good. We got to the hospital, and at the hospital, soon after they got him into the emergency room, they told me they needed to have me go to admitting. Well, that was the last time I ever saw my father alive. When I came back to the emergency room, they said, oh, well, he's in imaging. Go down to the imaging waiting room and wait. So I went down to the imaging waiting room, and the hospital chaplain came up and asked, is there anybody here with you? And I told him no. And I said, are you a member of a church anywhere? And I told him, yeah, Boulevard Baptist Church. He said, well, he'd go make a couple of phone calls. He went and made a couple of phone calls. And then he came and he walked me upstairs. And upstairs I was met by Ed Matheny and Harold Childress from, Bill Childress from Boulevard Baptist Church. And they opened up the wall right there. There was a door concealed in the wall that if it's closed you really can't tell it's there, and opened it to be a family room. And they took us in there, and they said, you know, that they were working on him, it'd be a little bit, and that they'd let us go back to see him. Anyway, it came to be time for visitation in the CCU unit, which is where they'd taken him, and they said, well, they're working on an emergency. It'll be a little bit before they can let anybody go back. Come to find out, my father was the emergency that they were working on. Dr. William Walker pronounced my father dead at 10:10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And the doctors came out, told Ed Matheny. Ed Matheny came and told me, and I just collapsed in his arms. And then it was my sad duty to call Suzanne at the store. And Suzanne, of course, was beside herself. And Ed Dixon from the Iowa Police Department was there. And he drove her to the bank to lock up the money so that it wouldn't be in danger. And he helped get the store secured. Anyway, so she came on to the hospital, and my Aunt Gloria arrived shortly after I found out that he had died. And she asked could we see him, and we went back and saw him laying there on the gurney. Anyway, and that was a very devastating day. We went back to McClendon Manor because we figured that that's where all the activity would be taking place. And my Aunt Gloria had asked for Dr. Baird to be with her when she told my grandmother that my father had died. And I think my grandmother really already knew it. But as soon as my grandmother saw Dr. Baird, she just lost it. And Dr. Baird checked her blood pressure and checked her out, and thought that she'd be okay. Anyway, it was very nice of him. He was also our deacon at the church, by the way, so that was extra special for us. Anyway, so it was a day that changed our lives. Very real way it changed our lives. This is a Federal Trade Commission required notice. When you click on an advertisement that is displayed with this video, or just before it, we receive a small commission. Sometimes, if you merely watch an ad, we receive commission. If you purchase anything by clicking on links on any of our websites, we receive a commission as well. McClendon Studios is a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for sites to earn advertising fees by advertising and linking to Amazon.